There is a kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. It feels full, alive, like something ancient is whispering in the background. You can't quite name it, but you feel it. Maybe it shows up in the stillness right after a deep sigh, or in that moment of pause when you step outside and suddenly hear the wind brushing through the trees. It's not loud. It never begs for your attention, but when it finds you, you know. It's a silence that doesn't demand, but receives, that doesn't push, but invites. A silence that feels less like absence and more like presence, real presence. It's in those rare moments when you finally stop trying to fix, prove, chase, or explain, and just breathe, just be. There in that space, something unspoken begins to heal. Not because you figured it all out, but because you finally stopped resisting what's already inside of you. There's a quiet intelligence in stillness, a wisdom that doesn't use words. And the moment you stop filling the silence with noise, it starts speaking. And its voice is unlike anything you've heard. It speaks through intuition, through goosebumps, through the feeling that you're not lost, you're just remembering something you forgot. It tells you that healing doesn't always look like breakthroughs or fireworks. Sometimes it's simply the courage to sit in the quiet without running from yourself, without numbing, without reaching for the next distraction. Just you, in communion with the silence you used to avoid. There is nothing to chase in that space, nothing to earn, just a slow, sacred return, a remembering, a subtle reunion with your own soul. Sometimes the loudest part of our life is the one we never talk about, the inner noise, the looping thoughts, the invisible pressure to hold it all together when something deep inside feels like it's slowly unraveling. And you move through the world like nothing's wrong, smiling at the right times, answering "I'm fine" on cue. But inside, you know the truth. There's a quiet ache, a slow hunger for something you can't name. Not success, not love, not even peace. Something more subtle than that. A feeling of home, a return to a place within yourself that doesn't need performance to be worthy. And maybe you've been there before. Maybe late at night when everyone else is asleep and your mask is finally off, you've sat with yourself in the quiet and thought, is this all there is? Or maybe you felt it in the shower, where the water drowns out the world and for a moment you hear a truth you usually avoid, that you've been running, not always with your feet, but with your soul. Running from the stillness, from the silence. Because deep down you were afraid of what it might show you, afraid it might reflect back a version of yourself you weren't ready to meet. But what if that silence never came to judge you? What if it's been patiently waiting all along to remind you who you are, beneath the noise, beneath the pressure, beneath the roles you've been playing for years? That kind of silence doesn't wound, it mends. It's the voice you didn't know you needed, the warmth behind your breath, the presence that doesn't flinch when you cry or collapse or fall apart. It holds you without condition, like something divine, like something that remembers your wholeness, even when you've forgotten. Because there's a difference between being alone and being in silence. Loneliness screams. Silence listens. Loneliness empties. Silence restores. And when you finally surrender to it, not as punishment, but as medicine, you begin to feel the shift. Something softens. Your shoulders drop. Your breath deepens. And all the things you've been carrying start to loosen, not because you solved them, but because you stopped clenching. You start to remember things, not memories, but truths. That you're not broken, that healing isn't a destination, that wholeness isn't something you earn, it's something you return to. And in that return, something ancient moves through you. Something sacred, something that feels like God, not the one in the sky, but the one that lives in the silence between your thoughts, the one that sees without eyes and speaks without sound, the one that's been with you all along. You begin to realize that so many of the things you've been chasing, validation, certainty, peace, were never found in the noise. The noise was just distraction, a way to keep yourself busy enough not to feel the void. But the void was never your enemy. It was the doorway into yourself. The silence is not empty. It's holy. It's where the real answers are, the ones no one can give you because they're already written inside your soul. And you don't need to fight for them. You just need to listen. That's when the healing begins. Not in a grand gesture, not in a perfect plan, but in a quiet choice. To be still, to be honest, to be here. And in that here-ness, something begins to return. Your breath, your clarity, your softness. You stop resisting the moment, you stop chasing the next, and for the first time in a long time, you feel whole. Not perfect, but whole. And that's what most people miss. They think healing is loud, that it has to be seen, shared, proved. But the most profound transformations are the invisible ones, the ones that happen in silence, the ones no one claps for, the ones where you finally forgive yourself, where you finally stop needing to explain and you sit with the parts of you you used to hide and say, I see you. I'm not leaving this time. No applause, no stage, just you and the truth. And in that truth, the body relaxes, the heart steadies, the mind clears. It's not dramatic, it's real. And real doesn't perform, real doesn't need to. The people who carry peace aren't always the ones who've had easy lives. Often, they're the ones who've walked through hell quietly and came back softer, not harder. They found something in the silence that changed them, and now just being around them feels like breathing clean air. They don't need to preach, their presence speaks for them. And when you're near them, you feel it, not in your ears, but in your soul. A calmness that doesn't come from escape, but from integration. And maybe that's what you're being called to now. Not to run, not to fix, but to return. To stop distracting yourself from yourself. To sit in the silence and let it hold you, reveal you, restore you. Because silence, when welcomed, becomes a sacred mirror. And what it reflects back is everything you've been longing for.
There's a silence that doesn't ask questions, and yet it answers everything. It doesn't solve your problems, but it brings you to a place where the problems no longer define who you are. It doesn't give you control, but it gives you clarity. And that clarity, that shift in how you see yourself, your life, your past, starts to change everything. You stop reacting, you start responding. You stop escaping, you start returning. Most people don't realize how much of their suffering comes not from what happened, but from the noise they've absorbed around it. The opinions, the expectations, the unresolved echoes of other people's wounds projected onto them. We take it all in without noticing, like dust in the air, until one day we wake up feeling heavy and can't quite explain why. But silence? Silence is a purifier. A sacred wind that moves through the halls of your soul and gently clears what's been left behind. Not forcefully, not all at once, but patiently, lovingly. Like a presence that's been watching you struggle and says, you don't have to carry that anymore. And the most beautiful part is this. It doesn't shame you for having carried it for so long. It doesn't tell you that you should have known better. It simply offers rest. And in that rest, something inside begins to bloom. Something ancient. Something innocent. There are things within you that have been waiting for your return. Parts of you that never stop believing in your softness, your wonder, your ability to begin again. But you forgot. You got distracted. Life pulled you outward, louder, faster. You did what you had to do, and no one blames you for that. But there comes a moment when even the strongest among us feel the quiet tug inward. That soft ache that says, there must be more than this. And there is. But it doesn't live where everyone's looking. It doesn't live in likes or accolades or the illusion of having it all figured out. It lives in that sacred silence. The one that's always been with you, waiting patiently beneath the surface. Sometimes the greatest wisdom doesn't come from books or mentors or experiences. It comes when you sit in a room alone, without your phone, without a plan, and just feel what's there. The sorrow you never named, the dream you quietly buried, the anger you swallowed so many times you forgot it existed. And slowly the silence helps you gather it all, not to fix it, but to face it. Not to judge it, but to witness it. Because what we witness, we can heal. And that kind of healing isn't loud or performative. It's subtle, slow, real. It shows up in how you speak to yourself in the morning, in how you pause before reacting, in how your breath softens when you say no, in how you start letting people in, not because you need them to fix you, but because you finally feel safe with your own presence. People around you might not notice it right away, but they'll feel it. The way you carry yourself, the peace in your eyes, the way your presence makes others feel safe without knowing why. That's what happens when you live from silence. You become the calm in someone else's storm, not by trying, but by being. And maybe that's the most powerful thing we can offer the world right now. Not more answers, not more noise, but presence, stillness, an example of what it looks like to live from depth instead of distraction, from softness instead of striving, from honesty instead of image. You don't have to become someone new. You don't have to chase some distant version of who you think you're supposed to be. You just have to remember. Remember who you were before the noise got too loud, before the world taught you to shrink, before you forgot how sacred your own breath is. That memory lives in silence. That return happens in stillness. And when it does, everything changes. Not instantly, but fundamentally. You begin to speak less, but mean more. You begin to move slower, but with purpose. You begin to need less, but feel fuller. You begin to walk through life not as someone searching for something, but as someone who's found something they can't quite explain. And that something, it's you. The real you. The one that never left. The one that's always been here, beneath the layers, beneath the fear, beneath the noise. Let them say whatever they want. Let the world spin fast. Let others chase whatever they need to chase. But you, trust your silence. Follow it like a compass. Let it lead you home. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people who've made peace with their own stillness. More people who carry their truth quietly but unmistakably. Who live with softness but never weakness. Who radiate from the inside out. And if you're still doubting whether that includes you, this is your reminder. It does. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not too late. The healing has already begun. Every breath, every pause, every quiet tear shed in the middle of the night, it's all part of it. You're returning, slowly, beautifully, silently. And when that return is complete, you won't need to announce it. People will feel it in your presence, in the calm of your gaze, in the steadiness of your energy. That's how healing works. So, if this message found you at the right time, stay here, sit with it, breathe with it, let it soak into the quiet places. And when you're ready, truly ready, don't just keep this to yourself. Share it. Not to go viral, not for attention, but because someone you love is silently carrying what they no longer have to. Maybe they need this message too. Maybe your act of sharing becomes their first step home. And if you felt seen, even a little, by these words, subscribe. Join this space, not as a follower, but as a fellow traveler. Someone walking back to themselves, quietly, courageously, completely. This isn't just a video. It's a doorway, one that leads back to what truly matters. Your stillness, your wholeness, your soul. Welcome home.